Today, we're going to jump into a blueprint for a cryptocurrency that came out a full decade before Bitcoin. Yeah, you heard that right. Back in 1998, a guy named Wei Dai published this paper called B-Money, and it laid the groundwork for so many of the ideas that, exploded into this global phenomenon we see today. So let's unpack this a really foundational text.
Okay, so to really get what B-Money is all about, you've got to understand the vision that sparked it. And it was pretty radical. We're talking about a world without rulers. See, Wei Dai wasn't just trying to invent a new way to pay for stuff. He was literally trying to design a whole new kind of society.
I mean, just listen to this quote. It really shows you the sheer scale of his ambition. He wasn't interested in, political reform or just tweaking the system. No, he envisioned a world where government itself becomes totally obsolete, completely unnecessary, replaced by a community that's governed by, cryptographic rules.
He actually had a name for this concept, crypto-anarchy. And the core idea is really simple but powerful. It's that true anonymity, it basically neutralizes violence. Think about it. If your online pseudonym can't be linked back to your real name or your physical location, then the threat of force just kind of vanishes. Your digital identity becomes this protective shield.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question, right? A community full of anonymous people might be safe from violence, but how does it actually work? How do you trade things? How do you enforce a contract if there's no government, no courts, no legal system? This is the fundamental puzzle that Wei Dai set out to solve. And his answer was a protocol he called B-Money. This was his groundbreaking design for a system that could actually let people exchange things and even enforce contracts, all in this world of completely untraceable, pseudonymous individuals.
So you have to understand, B-Money isn't just about digital cash. It's way bigger than that. It's the engine he designed to try and make crypto-anarchy a practical reality. It's the tool that would let people cooperate efficiently, even when they have zero reason to trust each other. All right, so Dai's paper actually outlines two different protocols. We're going to start with the first one, which he himself kind of described as a thought experiment. It's an elegant idea, but pretty impractical. Think of it as the starting point for what came next. The core of this first version is just radical decentralization. I want you to imagine a shared public ledger, like a big notebook of transactions. But instead of one central copy, every single person on the network keeps their own complete copy. In this system, you're your own bank. Everyone is responsible for tracking every single account balance.
So you might be asking, where does this money even come from? Well, it's created through computation. A user solves a really hard computational problem, and then they broadcast that solution to everyone. The whole network then has to agree on the real-world cost of that computing effort, and then they credit the user's account. And if this sounds familiar, it's basically an early form of what we now call mining or proof of work.
And making a payment is just as straightforward. Let's say Alice wants to send money to Bob. She just broadcasts a signed message, and that just means it's cryptographically proven to have come from her and only her. The message says, "I'm giving X units to Bob." Everyone sees this, updates their own little ledger, takes the money from Alice's account, and adds it to Bob's. Of course, the whole thing gets ignored if Alice doesn't have enough money to begin with.
Now, it's a beautiful idea, right? So clean. But it has a fatal flaw, a huge one. For this whole thing to work, every single person has to receive every single message at the exact same time. It's like needing a perfectly synchronized, unjammable global broadcast. And in the real, messy world of the internet, that's just not possible. It's a deal breaker.
But Dai recognized this problem, this fatal flaw. So he proposed a second protocol, one that was way more practical. This version was actually designed to work in a realistic network environment, one that doesn't need that impossible, perfect communication.
So here's the key innovation, the big shift. Instead of everyone keeping the books, that job is handed off to a special subset of users called servers. And this is crucial. The basis for trust completely changes. It shifts away from this impossible perfect broadcast channel and moves to a really clever system of economic incentives designed to keep those servers honest.
Okay, so how do you keep these servers from just running off with the money? Well, you do it with a really robust system of checks and balances. First, servers have to deposit their own money into a special account, like a security bond. If they get caught cheating, they lose it. Simple as that. They also have to periodically publish their databases, so any regular user can pop in and verify that their own balance is correct. And, this is the big one, anyone can check that the grand total of all accounts adds up to the total amount of money ever created. This stops the servers from just printing money for themselves.
It's a system built on verifiable transparency, not just blind faith. But even with this much more practical design, Dai identified another tricky challenge. And it's all about how you value the creation of new money in a world where technology is just constantly getting better and cheaper. Okay, remember how money is created based on the cost of a computation? Well, what is that cost? Thanks to Moore's law, computers get faster and cheaper all the time. A computation that costs $1,000 today might only cost $500 next year and $250 the year after that. So how on earth can a decentralized network all agree on a fair value when that value is constantly changing? Dai's solution, which he actually tucked away in an appendix, was pretty clever. He basically said, let the market decide. He proposed this little sub-protocol that would use a competitive auction to figure out the cost of creating new money. Here's how this really elegant idea works. First, the servers all agree on how much new money they want to create in a given period. Then, users who want to create that money submit bids. Their bid is basically them saying, hey, I'm willing to do this much computational work for that much of the new money. Then they go off, do the work, and broadcast their solutions. Finally, the servers look at all the completed work and they reward the winning bids. And the winners are the ones who are most efficient, the ones who offered the most computational bang for the buck. It's this awesome, dynamic system that lets the market solve the problem of value instead of some fixed, rigid rule. So when you take a step back and look at the big picture, B-Money was so much more than just a technical paper. It was a whole philosophical and economic framework for a new way for people to cooperate digitally. And you have to remember, he was imagining all this way back when these ideas were still just pure theory. Dai's own closing words really capture the spirit of the whole project. He knew this wasn't the final, perfect answer. He saw B-Money as a foundational step, a piece of a much larger puzzle that might one day make his vision of crypto-anarchy a real, practical thing.
And that really leads us to a final, pretty powerful question. Think about it. A distributed ledger, proof of work, economic incentives, all of these core ideas were laid out right here, a full decade before Satoshi Nakamoto's famous white paper even existed. So, as you go about your day in our modern digital world, I want you to think about this. What parts of the future we're living in right now can you trace all the way back to this remarkable blueprint from 1998?